back to Last Call 76. I'm Seth Crumrick.
I'm Dan O'Brien.
Hey, we're really excited to have you back here today. As you can see, we're out here playing some poker, which is a throwback because we've got some experience doing that in the past. Back in Vegas, who was it? You, me, Colton,
yes.
Right? Colton was your partner in business, and he was also a UFC champ from the Ultimate Fighter TV show.
Yep, season 16.
And it was a couple of years ago, but was it 4 years, 5 years ago?
It's been about 7 now.
Good night.
It was quick.
Man, so look, we were down there doing some kind of NASCAR event. I think it was one of the fall race in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And so Dan and Colton were in town, and I was down there to do some good military stuff. And they're like, hey, let's just go out and play a couple quick hands of blackjack. It was like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, sure, man, come down, just have a quick drink with the fellas. And then, how late were we out that night?
Well, so how it really started, though, me and Colton linked up. I said, hey, my brother Seth is here, my commander, and we're getting ready to, merge with Nine Line at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
As partners. So we were going to meet at the track at 7 in the morning. So we left about, I guess it was about 8, 9.
Yeah, we hit the casino about 8 or 9.
So we got there. I pulled $300 out, gave each of us $100, and said, hey, let's just do what brothers do. Let's just go have a good time together. What we didn't know is we kind of started winning.
It was shocking because normally, I can tell you this, cards are like my kryptonite. I will start playing and the one guarantee is that I lose. But somewhere that night, man, like the stars were aligned and we started crushing it.
We did. It was a good time. So we thought, since I've lost the last 2 dart challenges, I had to roll it back. So I lost 2 titles in my own studio.
Yeah.
But I'm convinced, no cheating, we got our monsters here that are going to watch over us, and we're going to play a hand of blackjack.
Well, it's got to go better than last time because, look, the last time we played, I think we rolled out of the casino at like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I'll admit it now because I'm retired, but I had to be up and dressed in uniform at 7 o'clock in the morning to go give a speech somewhere. And I was hanging like a champ, man. That was a tough night, but a fun night, an absolute blast.
It was great. It was just brotherhood, total safe. Uber drivers later on.
Of course.
The way we did it, NASCAR guys working with us. We had to be at the drivers' meeting. We had to do all these events. We had to go to Welcome Old Soldiers barbecue. It was miserable, but it was fun at the same time.
And it was awesome at the same time.
It was only supposed to be an hour. It was an hour date, and then it was a brotherhood. Airborne Ranger. SF guy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm the MP. But I'm kind of proud of that,
hey,
too.
man, you kept us in check and getting in trouble.
But we put all the checks in measure, and this is a lesson learned. We had a great time. Everybody was taken care of. Nobody did anything wrong. Nobody did anything stupid.
We looked out for each other.
Yeah.
So now,
so now we're going to play a hand of cards.
That's it. So look, I can't wait to see what happens here. I've checked out my whole gun. I'm feeling lucky. Right now, I'm 2 for 2 on darts. Let's see how we do. Jessica, hit me with the card. Not the fist. There you go. Thank you.
Not yet. I don't want mine yet.
Oh, man! I'm busted.
Well, I guess that's it. I guess we got a show to do.
Live from First Street Studios in South Tampa, Florida, it's time for another round of Last Call with Dan O'Brien, Seth Crumrick, and Jessica behind the camera.
Okay, hey, welcome back. Dan, I gotta say, great job at the card table. You got your win on me right there, buddy. Well done, well done.
I'll tell you something. I couldn't believe last week when we were shooting darts, I knew I had it. I don't lose like that. And then I only had to beat a 4, and then I threw a 3 solid. It didn't hit a 2 for a 6, and it didn't hit the 3 for a 9. I was a little bit upset, but hey, I got my redemption, brother.
It's just like when you play pool and you're like, all I have to do is not sink the 8 ball, just don't sink it, and you start thinking about it, and the next thing you do, you absolutely sink it. It happens.
Or scratchy oleo.
That's right, or the big scratch. But look, here's the good news. You just got your win, and you're back in charge, and I'd love to see it. Now look, speaking of wins, speaking of struggles, last episode we talked Cowboys, we talked Philly. Come on, man, lay it on me. What do you got?
Okay, so it's a tale of 2 halves. So I know there's a lot of Dallas Cowboy people out there that are like, oh, Cooper Rush had a bad half, we got to get rid of him. But I'll tell you what, the adjustments were coming more.
It was great.
McCarthy came in.
Yep.
Got that team playing football, right? So what I was most impressed about, they played the absolute worst half they possibly could have played. Eagles with Hurts, they had the perfect setup. Right?
Their game plan was solid.
It was crazy.
Defense and offense, they were dialed in.
They took Parsons out of the game. They didn't even block him.
Yeah.
They just played an RPO off of him.
Yeah.
And it was crazy to watch. But then Dallas had to go back and say, okay, we got a bunch of youngins here. We got to get better. We came out. And then I'll tell you, Cooper Rush played an amazing second half. So we all know that Patrick Mahomes played a horrible half in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
We know in the NFC Championships, we know that the game with Buffalo and Kansas City last week, they didn't play so well.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is it's okay to have a bad half. It's how you respond when you come out of the locker room.
Yeah, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
And they played really well. So I think the Philly only got 6 in the second half.
Yeah.
And Dallas marked 17.
Yep.
So did they lose the game? Yes. If there was more time in the game of 60 minutes, maybe it would have looked different. But overall, Dallas is looking really good, and now Dak's been cleared for this week. So,
yeah, I'm super excited.
But I'll tell you this is the bad thing. Mm-hmm. If Dak comes out and loses to the Bears and the Lions in the next 2 weeks, then we got a quarterback controversy.
I've got faith.
I hate to say it.
I've got faith in Dak. I think he's going to come in, and the Cowboys are going to be cooking with Crisco right off the bat. And look, I said it last week. I had to eat some crow because of my thoughts on the previous system. I am telling you, this team, the coaches, what the GMs put together, it absolutely works well. They put game plans together well. They make adjustments well. They didn't panic.
No.
And really excited to see it. So regardless of who you put at quarterback, I am very optimistic that we can do it. And look, it's a long season.
It is. We're early.
We're still in the first half of the season. We've got this.
But you got to look at it in the sense that it's early in the season, but you got to start taking concern with it because the East is playing well. The Giants are looking exceptionally well.
They're looking great.
So now what's going to happen is now you look down in the South. Mm-hmm. Oh, I guess Freddie wanted to cut that Miller Lite open.
That's right.
But I think what you got to look at, though, is so now what happens in the South is New Orleans isn't playing well.
Yeah.
Atlanta kind of emerged a little bit, and they played the Bucs pretty tough. So it's interesting now. You might get 3 of the tickets to the playoffs out of the East, and now it might only be the division winner, right?
I want to see.
Isn't that interesting?
It is, but I need to see more Falcons, man. I'm sorry. Ever since that Super Bowl that Tom Brady ripped their heart out and showed it to them, I need to see more Falcons playing. You got to show me consistent winning. Then I'm on board. Until then, the Falcons have a big question.
I think Mariota came in and he's playing some pretty good ball, like how he looked back in Oregon, right? So you got to look at him and look at the fact that Tom Brady got a really ridiculous call there at the end.
Yep.
Now they did miss the pass interference on the play before,
of course,
but at the end of the day, that could have shaped itself a little bit differently.
Sure.
And if I'm in Tampa Bay right now, I'm worried.
Yeah.
I'm not panicking. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Bucs fan. I'm a Bears fan and a Cowboy fan. Unfortunately, all in the NFC. But that's where you grow up. That's called loyalty, right?
Of course.
It's called neighborhood loyalty.
There you go.
But I was just with Ryan Jensen this week.
Yeah.
I had a few words with him. You know, he's a big supporter of 9-line Black Rifle and us.
And the Bucs came over here to MacDill Air Force Base, which was awesome. So shout out to the Bucs organization.
Thanks a lot for that. So with Ryan Jensen come back as a Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
You know, people don't understand the center position nowadays.
Yeah.
They make a lot of calls on the offense, right? A lot of the audibles come from the center.
Yeah.
So if Ryan Jensen comes back, I think that brings a level of unity back to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And I think the Bucs, they have got to walk this Carolina game as it's their Super Bowl right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because it doesn't get any easier, because then we get the Ravens and the Rams at home.
Yeah.
And look, the Rams have something to say, right? And so do the Ravens right now. They're not playing their best either. So these are 3, like, basically NFC championship and 1 AFC championship game going down. But if the Bucs lose all 3 of these, our season's done. Well, just because of the emergence of the East. What do you think? Yeah,
and I think that the Bucs also have this sort of double-edged sword of a lot going on off the field. You know, you can't, read 2 pages on any of the news channels without hearing about Tom Brady, his personal life, and things of that nature. So there's a lot going on over there at the Bucs camp that they've got to just get focused and win this game for sure. I mean, what do you think? What do you think about what's going on the off the field?
I'll tell you, Tom Brady supposedly made a quote. Obviously, it's on every 3 posts across social media right now. And he made a quote saying that I see NFL seasons kind of like soldiers deploying. Okay, so am I mad at Tom Brady? No. Word choice is important. I don't think it was intentional. You got to remember, the Bucs are immersed in the McDill platform.
Of course.
Here with the SF, CENTCOM, SOCOM. Yeah. So we tell them stories and they take it as such.
Yeah.
So am I mad at Tom Brady for saying that? No. Yeah. But word choice is important.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think my interpretation was he meant it like a campaign.
Exactly.
Like we have to go over now. We got to play 17 games in the regular season. Then we have to get into the playoffs. Like he's looking at it as a campaign, not as a battlefield. And look, I will say the military. I mean, how often do we use football lexicon and what we do? All right, guys, it's the 4th quarter. We really got to get after this now. All right, it's only halftime in this. So I think that I'll give him a pass on this for sure. And not just because I got a chance to meet him when I was a younger guy, and he and his father could not have been nicer.
Amazing people.
And not have been, they took about 5 minutes when they figured out we were in the Army, a friend of mine, and gracious, wonderful folks. And so even though I wasn't a big Pats fan, after he walked away, I looked at my buddy and go, oh my gosh, I think I'm a Pats fan now, which just happened. I don't know. That was ridiculous. Right. So I'm a fan, and hopefully all that stuff works itself out.
And I'll close on it. So it's like when we were on the Fort, we're at Fort Irwin, and we call it the Super Bowl of training.
Sure.
We give these soldiers the best possible chance to do great things on the battlefield, right?
Of course.
Certified through leaders, and what do we call it? The Super Bowl. So we use their terms
all
as
the time.
well.
All the time.
So I'm just saying, Tom Brady, you're probably going to watch this, or at least Ryan Jensen is, and you're going to hear about it. And I'll just tell you, I'm not mad because I know what you were trying to say. I'm not going to be like the veteran community and every news network to try to get clickbait. I don't need that. But please, word choice is important. And it just could have been said a little bit better. But other than that, you're still our GOAT, and we still need you to play. So best of luck to you. Great segment.
That's
Seth.
right. Go win, Tom. All right, well, look, this is the Halloween special. And so clearly we've got a couple guests here that are enforcing the standards here, that are watching over our back, and so no sudden movements over your buddy over there.
And don't forget, Chucky's got her 6.
Oh, man. Look at that dude hanging up there. That's creepy. I don't care where you're from. Now, I don't want to scare you even more, Dan, but I'm going to, because I see that your glass is getting a little bit low, and I don't think you're prepared this week. So I'm going to go ahead and coin you that you get to pick up the next round, my friend. So unless you got a coin on you, you're buying, and not just for you and me, but for Jason and Freddie as well. So what do you got? Because these guys mean business.
Yeah, because Chucky's underage. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. He gets to look up.
A safety brief,
He's
right?
not allowed in the bar.
Safety brief.
He's not allowed in the bar. He's got to watch
That's
him
why
upstairs.
he's up in the staircase. All right, so I like this. Let me see it.
This is a coin that I carry with me, given to me by a friend of mine, a really good guy. But what do you got?
Okay.
Don't try to distract. I'm not sure you got a coin on you.
So by virtue of size, I'm going to lose today. But by meaning, I'm going to win.
Okay, let's see what you got.
So I'm gonna hit you with the smallest little baby coin I ever got. But it comes with a great story.
That's awesome.
And I never thought about it until I saw it be given to my daughter. So I'm gonna touch on this.
That's
so
cool.
Look, in comparison,
wow,
we're a little bit inferior here. But the great part of the story was this colonel gave this coin to my daughter. I think she was at some track meet or something on post or doing some kind of event.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly because I was doing things as well at the time and, deploying at the academy. But this colonel, I always kept this coin. It's like one of my favorites. And, I got...
You've got an endless amount of coins.
Yeah. So, but I thought was so key. He said, I don't need to always give coins to soldiers.
Yeah.
And to other like outside agencies
Sure.
I made this coin for the children.
That's awesome.
The military child.
That's awesome.
And he said I had to pay for it because legally I can't give coins out to family members. But he said that was a good $1,200 investment for me because if I can't have the kids on the same team as their parents or their soldier, then I'm not being a good commander.
That's a great point.
I thought that was insane, man. When I heard that, I was like, dude, I've never heard anything like that. And then you know what I did? I took that after hearing that from that leader at Fort Bliss.
Yeah.
And I applied that into my own formations.
I love it.
And gave coins to the kids and stuff, you know, and awards. And when I left, gifts.
Absolutely.
Because that was like probably the most important thing that I heard in my military career. Because he goes, these kids need to be rewarded. You know what they go through. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, you know, I just want to talk on that for a second because
And I'm going to forgive you on a free drink because this is important.
Well, I'll still pick up the drink, but I'll say that, you know, family members serve with us, and sometimes we forget. And what we sometimes take for granted, because I know it happens to me, is the impact that this has on a kid.
Right.
You know, my kids that have received something from the military throughout our time in, they always bring it up. And when I go put them to bed at night or whatever, I'll look over at their bookcase and there are those things that I would have forgotten about a long time ago, but they're sitting right there with them. So this is a great importance. That's a great coin. Well done, Dan. That's fantastic.
Well, great discussion. But I just thought that that's a good takeaway for other leaders to think about as we try to shape this new look of the military, at least from our perspective,
of course,
and how we can promote and recruit.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a significant moment in my daughter's life, and that coin still sits at the highest level of all the coins in my house because it meant the most.
I love it.
Because it wasn't about the soldier, it was about our children.
That's awesome. And look, so a toast to you, and I will be buying 4 drinks now,
or perhaps a bottle of Horse Soldier.
Oh, Horse Soldier bourbon sounds like a perfect one.
New Orleans.
That's
we'll
right.
We'll talk about that next segment.
And I just also want to throw out a shout out to the military family. Thank you for everything that you've done for us. It's been fantastic.
Amazing job.
So Dan, I want to loop back to something. In the first episode, we talked UFC, and one of the great things that we loved about UFC is the fact that it's global. You get fighters from all over the world that participate and fight at that top level, representing their country, so the entire planet's watching the UFC. And in there, we talked about the stands. We talked about Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, but I remember from your intro, you had also mentioned that you'd been to Pakistan. Was that for business, so to speak, or were you over there personally traveling? What was the story behind that?
Now, I was selected to do that mission through my leadership at the time. It was Tammy Quinn. She was my kennel master, and I was a bomb dog handler at the time.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
So there was, as you know, during that time, there was a standoff between Pakistan and India.
They'd both just gone nuclear. What was that, 1998, right?
1998. Yeah. And then I was chosen to go do that mission.
That's awesome.
It was a crazy mission.
Who did you go with? Like, who were you?
So I was assigned to the State Department.
Okay.
And then, you know, they basically said, this is what you need to do. So I had to go to Frankfurt.
Well, let's see. The State Department.
Yes.
So this is State Department mission.
Yes.
Okay, look.
So I had several Secret Service missions as well.
But I love the State Department, but let's just say they don't roll blue collar like we do in the military. So I got a question for you. When you rolled to the State Department, did you roll like Tupac, California Dreaming video out there on the big boats, living in the mansions, all these things? Or you like my man Biggie, living in Brooklyn in the tough streets and living down in the gutters like we always end up doing
Did you
in the
really
military?
just go there?
I do, and I play with dolls.
So first of
this
all,
looks like too.
it's Tupac, and it's California love.
It's an accent I've got. If you're from the East Coast, it's Tupac.
Okay, whatever it is. It was a combination of the two. But,
Really?
But good play. Good play. Because I listened to both of them.
I'm going to leave the gentleman here to judge you. See
for
how
a
it
Halloween
goes.
special. Two great.
So you're rolling with the State Department, 1998, nuclear standoff. I'm sorry, didn't mean to derail. Keep going.
Yeah, so I was selected. I had to do a bomb dog mission.
Yeah.
So it was so problematic. And the reason is because we're not used to going to those countries on the daily, right?
That's right.
We do the Europes and we do the
course.
Asias and whatever. So it got difficult because I had to go to Frankfurt to the U.S. consulate for Pakistan.
Yeah.
And I had to get a waiver, not only for myself,
Yeah.
a visa kind of, but then I had to get one for my dog. And the problem is at the time is trying to get your dog to fly on an aircraft that these people like approve of.
You know, it's funny when you do a visa, like they got to take a picture. In my mind, I see them taking a picture of your dog and having to put it on there.
It was the most absurd thing. So But we got that done. We got through the red tape, you know, with the embassies and everybody working together and the consulates. So we get to the mission itself.
Yeah.
And I'm flying out. So I fly out of Frankfurt on the most beautiful British Airways in the world.
Living the dream.
First class.
Living Tupac.
Right. They upgrade me and they tell me, hey, man, this is what we're going to do for you. We're going to give you this great meal.
Awesome.
The stewardess were gorgeous, right?
Absolutely.
High class, first class, all the way around. And then we land in Amman, Jordan. So my connecting flight is with Pakistani Air.
Oh, now now it's Biggie's turn.
Yeah, perhaps. So I'm the only American on the plane. It's evident.
Yeah.
And we'll just leave it there. And I get on this aircraft and I'm waiting for my dog to board. So I'm watching, you know, from the window.
Yeah.
To make sure my dog's on.
Of course.
The last thing I want to do is carry on with my flight.
Yeah.
If he's not on the plane itself, right? So that was a big thing at that point. Everybody told me when we went out at the consulate's house, or at the U.S. consulate, in Frankfurt, they were like, make sure your dog gets on that plane.
That's right. You're not going to be sniffing for the bombs.
Right, because you're not, these people don't operate. Once it goes from British Airways to Pakistani Air, make sure you don't board that plane till you know that dog's
smart.
on there.
That's smart.
And I was like, okay, so that was my focus.
Yep.
So anyway, we get on this plane. I'm like in the first business class seat there is against the wall on the 747. We take off. They serve us pimento cheese, not my favorite.
So you went from living the first class meals on British Airways to some pimento cheese.
And everybody's sleeping on me.
Oh, man. That's it. Dance the blanket.
Yeah, everybody. it was the most terrible thing in the world just because there was no one to talk to.
Yeah.
So I guess it was about, 7-8 hours.
That's a good push. Yeah.
Good push. So then we get there and we land in Peshawar, Pakistan, which is known as the headquarters of the Taliban back then.
Yeah, of course.
Right? It's common knowledge.
Yep.
So I don't know what all that means at the time. I'm just a lonely little staff sergeant in the army playing with a dog, right?
Happy to be here.
Yeah, right? So we'll get into the Pope missions and all the other missions I did. But this one was crazy. So we get to the airport, and I'm the only guy that has a dog and standard luggage. Everybody else has like a blanket.
They're looking at you like they're crazy, even though all their stuff's wrapped up in a blanket.
Right, with
zip
a
wrap.
rope, but I'm the one that's not fitting in, right? So we get to the airport.
I love it.
And they don't have an airport that we're used to seeing. It almost looks like a flea market.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that being derogatory, but you've been there.
Different cultures, it's just the way it is.
But it's an Indian village in that area. So, or not an Indian village, but a
Pakistani village.
You know, I'll correct myself, so I don't want to offend nobody. But I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So I was there for about an hour in a corner.
Yeah.
Backed up in a corner because I was like, man.
You got your dog there.
This is crazy. My dog's sitting in front of me.
Cool. All right, good.
Hey, got a quick release on the very kennel. Not stressing, but unarmed nonetheless.
You're unarmed, but yet you're armed with a dog.
Right. So I have a fighting chance.
That's right.
But we got to start from the corner and work our way out. So about maybe an hour later, 15 minutes later, this guy comes up to me and we get there and he's like, Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mr. Dan O'Brien. And I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Okay, yeah, you got me.
I'm the only guy in the airport that could be that guy, right? I'm almost certain there's not another Irish guy with that name as an American in the airport. Right. Get with me now. Come with me. And I'm like, okay. And there's like two other guys in the garb that they wear. Not an American State Department representative picked me up.
Yeah.
So it was the Pajero Shuffle.
You get a little local flavor there. I love it.
Do you remember the Pajero?
I do. I love Pajero is the car of a foreign government.
So there's 6 of them.
Yeah.
All lined up.
Yeah.
And they're like, you get in the middle. And I was like, okay.
Sure.
So I have to take my dog out of the crate. Can't carry my dog in the crate with my luggage as well. Yeah. So they're scared to death of the dog.
Yeah, right.
They didn't know. They were just like, go pick this guy up at the airport.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, cool. So I have to take my dog out. Now the whole airport's in a panic. Right?
Yeah, it's a cultural thing.
Right,
sure.
right.
Yeah.
So I said, you carry the Mary kennel. And he's like, we got to go. And I was like, all right, bro, I got it, man. But I can't lift an 80-pound dog and all my luggage.
I'm 4 arms short.
Yeah, I got to let the dog out. I got to walk him out of here. And we'll put him back in the crate. You promise? Yeah, dude, look, I got this, man. It's not my first rodeo, right? So we get out there. It's pitch black though,
Yeah.
like no electricity out there.
Yeah. Right.
It was crazy. So I was like, I'm just jumping in a convoy of 6 Pajeros.
Yep.
All multicolored, like a bubblegum machine.
That's right.
And I'm like, where are we going?
Gosh, action movies start this way, and it usually doesn't go well. That's right.
No. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I don't have a hotel location.
Yeah.
I don't have a secret service or State Department representative.
Yeah.
Telling me what to do.
Just a man and his dog.
I've just got guys that at that time I didn't know, but worked for the U.S. consulate in Pakistan. So they get me in this convoy, and dude, have you ever been to a Korean taxi?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It was worse than that.
Nice.
I mean, these guys are going when a Pajero can go.
Yes.
Given their horsepower.
Laws of physics are being bent. They're going so crazy fast.
And for a minute, it was kind of cool. I felt kind of like Pete Rose sliding in,
Yeah.
chest first into a base. But another time, I was kind of scared because I didn't know where I was going.
That's right.
And there was no American representation to me.
That's right.
So I was like, oh, this is unusual.
Yeah.
Right? You know that.
Of course.
So there's at least a liaison.
Yeah.
So they're driving, swerving, doing the Korean taxi cab shuffle for me, and I was like, oh my Lord, my dog's yapping and barking like crazy.
Yeah, he's not down with the program.
And then they pulled me into this thing that I would consider like a White House.
Yeah.
In Pakistan versus all.
So you go through like the gate. It's crazy outside the gate. You go through the gate, and then it's like, oh.
Yeah, like the Truman Show.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
Like, excuse my language, we don't cuss on this show, but no poop.
Yes.
But I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then I happened to get there, and then of course he doesn't need me, so it's still the Pakistanis.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, well, this is your room. You're gonna live back here in the corner, and this way, it's like their guest suite.
Yeah.
And then you can let your dog out in these 12-foot walls, and then nobody can hurt you.
Yeah.
And I was like, nobody can hurt me. What do you mean?
Yeah.
He goes, well, there's nowhere we can put your dog
That's right.
in this area.
Yeah.
And I was just like amazed by it. And then it was like butler service.
Yeah.
It was great.
So now we're back to the Tupac life. I like it.
Oh, here we go. So it was interesting in the sense that we were there for about 10 days, I think it was.
Yeah.
And we got to learn the culture. It was great. Then there was an American steakhouse, and then you had to go to Islamabad to go to the commissary and the embassy.
Yeah.
So when you go on those missions, you always try to link up with your Marine counterparts.
Of course. Absolutely.
Especially
They're the best.
in those kind of places.
Oh, yeah.
Because you get a good meal.
And they know what's going on out there.
They know the hustle.
Yeah.
And they'll drive by and pick you up in the suburbs.
Yeah,
right
they're phenomenal.
Yeah. So that was a crazy mission, though. But then we went go into the Indian areas or the Pakistani areas, whatever.
Yeah.
It depends. But I know that's a cultural thing now. I'm not trying to
sure.
offend nobody. But you're like, let's just call them Pakistanis for this reason.
Yeah.
But I saw kids like sewing World Cup soccer balls, and I got one.
Yeah.
And I was talking to some of the villagers.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, this is what our kids do.
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
day long. They sew this, and then they had the shoes.
It's a tough life, man.
And I was like, I have that. What I was trying to talk to you about the other day when we were rehearsing, though, is like I remember being a kid and I worked for the Dallas Times Herald.
Yeah.
And they're going away gift. I have the paper right over there. You want me to show you and show the crowd?
Yeah, we'll put it up for the show.
Yeah, we'll put it up for the show. That's fine. But they gave me like a John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Like when he was
killed. Yeah,
in
absolutely.
Dallas. But then you look at okay, so I'm delivering these 800 or 1,200 papers every day.
Yeah.
Which was grueling by itself.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Ruining my Dodge Omni, listening to ABBA.
Yeah, of course. Getting down.
Listening to Asia, throwing them out through the moonroof. Totally OSHA non-compliant back then. It was the heat of the moment, whatever. But
I thought you were going to go with Dancing Queen. So that's a good choice.
But it was, 17, whatever. But my point to the whole thing is that I saw that culture.
Yeah.
For the first time, because most of our missions are very high profile, like Olympic villages or whatever it may be, but that time. And then you got to really see how much of an impact we made.
Oh, yeah.
So when we went to Khyber Pass and we walked up there and had to search all those buildings for one dog, I was like, wow, this is a lot.
Yeah.
And then the State Department, and then I met up with some of the CAT team guys. You're familiar with them.
Yeah.
Counter anti-terrorism teams or whatever, or attack teams. So it was fun to do the mission because those people are all just like us, and they're all like professionals. Absolutely. And there wasn't a lot to do there, so you just throw the Uno cards out or whatever somebody happened to bring, or the backgammon game. But it was very interesting. I know your Pakistan experience is very different.
Well, it is, but I will say, just to dovetail back on something you said, when you go out and you see those Pakistani villagers that are putting together the shoes and the soccer balls, you realize like that's it for them. Like there's not a lot of upward movement in that culture. And that's why when you look back at you throwing papers as a young kid, you were able to have incredible success coming through your Army military career to get to this point. Those dudes and dudettes that were sewing soccer balls are likely still out there sewing soccer balls right now. And that's why our country's great.
Since 1998, right?
Absolutely. This is life's a choose your own adventure in the United States. You're not stuck by some kind of weird caste system and things. But I am struck that we definitely had a different experience in Pakistan. I started at the Biggie Smalls level, and it just steadily went down to probably the ODB from the Wu-Tang Clan. It got worse and worse as time went on. So after 9/11, my unit, 5th Special Forces Group, was the first one to go into Afghanistan. So we were Task Force Dagger. Of course, had our JSOC folks, our Air Force was there, the Marines came in to secure Rhino, but like the whole team, like we were the first ones to actually go in. You see Horse Soldier Bourbon, 12 Strong, all
right
those
here.
things. To the fellas, I mean, that was it.
Our
So,
fellas.
absolutely. So those guys had these really glorious missions. My mission was bizarre. It was, if they had like this great Saving Private Ryan, I had something that was directed by David Lynch, something really weird. And what had happened was my team was selected to go do a CIA mission. And what we did, we linked up in Jacobad, Pakistan, which is on the border. So as the 12 strong guys were in there fighting, we go there, we link up with the CIA guys, we link up with a bunch of Pakistani commandos, what they call the Special Service Group guys. And the mission was, hey, the CIA ground branch guys and 4 Green Berets, I was one of them, would go out to the tribal area, which hadn't seen a dude that looked like me out there in a long, long time, of which the government's not welcome out there. It's the Wild West. Mm-hmm. The Pakistani
100%.
commandos showing up there were about as welcome out there as I was. But the plan was we were going to go out there, we were going to bring a bunch of CIA lethal aid in, and we were going to train these guys up, and then as the foreign fighters came across the border, we grabbed them. It's called Operation Spider. It was great. So that was the plan. Like, this is it. Okay, great. Day that we're going to go in, this would have been late November of 2001. The ISI, which is the Pakistani version of the CIA, walks out to the airfield and says, hey, CIA is not allowed in the tribal area. We're only going to let the Green Berets go in. And I'm like, what? I went from being, hey, one of the helpers on the mission now to, hey, you're in charge. And by the way, we're about to get on the planes and go. So that was my, oh my gosh. We get out to the tribal area, and you got to understand something. Like, we grew these big beards out because people want to see dudes in beards. But out there, given the nature of our mission, we had to dress in the Pakistani travel clothes. We had to wear Pakistani uniforms with small U.S. flags on them to stay street legal and blend in as best we could. But I don't know how a 6'2" dude with a big red beard's blending in.
Right.
But I tried, right? So it was, we get out there and start training with these guys. But when I tell you it's the Wild West, damn. They had these gun markets that were out there that you could buy anything from a pistol to an attack helicopter. They had the opium.
So true.
It was insane. And
crazy.
You could walk in a tent and be like, I need 2 AK-47s. They're like, you want to test it? I'm like, yeah, sure. You'd walk out behind the tent and there's a valley wall and you would just shoot into the wall. You talked about OSHA earlier? No OSHA in the gun markets there. It was crazy. Opium going back and forth, and people were looking at myself and the other Green Berets like we were space aliens that just came in from Mars, and like, who are those dudes, man? They're not welcome out here. And it was really violent. But I'll save the war story stuff for another time. And it got stranger and stranger out there, and we watched the foreign fighters come across, and we would get them when they would come in. And our Pakistani brothers were great, but I'll tell you, they were extremely violent. And things were getting really, really sketchy over time. And I would call back to our higher headquarters and go, hey, these things happened that were outside of the Geneva Convention. What do you want us to do? And they would say, continue mission. Continue mission. You're like, oh my gosh. So we were out there on the lunatic fringe catching all these dudes coming in, and then trying to keep them alive to go back to the CIA and the ISI guys could interrogate them. Meanwhile, I'm like, this is insane. How long are we going to be out here for? And I would ask that question. They go, look, you've got orders for the first 365 days. If you're there any longer, we'll cut you another set of orders. And you're like, oh my gosh. And it was just getting weirder every day. You could smell the opium going, and the way the guys would entertain themselves. The Pakistani soldiers, which are great soldiers, they would dress up as women, and they would dance for each other, which again, it's part of their culture, right? And our job is to be cultural chameleons and blend in, though no, I did not dress up and dance. But you would go and you'd watch these things, and the boys would get all fired up. It was how things went out there in the travel era. So we've got these super violent guys that are out there dancing for each other, that are capturing all these dudes coming across the border, and we're sitting there going, what happened to the, I want to go, do the cavalry charge in the back of a horse somewhere and do those things. I'm sitting out here, and it's descending into madness. Finally, one day, we realized, we've been there for about 4 or 5 months, we saw that all the weapons that we had brought out there with the agency, the sniper systems, the grenade launchers, about 3/4 of them were missing.
Of course.
And I noticed that we went from about 800 commandos down to 400 commandos. And part of it was because the foreign fighters figured out where we were, and they stopped coming to our section of the border. Because we were rolling them all up, and they were either being taken care of there on the target site, or we were sending them back for interrogation. So things had calmed down a little bit. So I asked one of the guys there, Zamir, who was a friend of ours, I go, hey, Zamir, hey, what happened to all the dudes and all the weapons we brought out here? They're like, oh, yes, they went up to Kashmir to go fight the Indians. I'm like, oh, this is a problem. We brought all this U.S. weaponry out here. We trained you how to do it. We're trying to stop all these dudes coming in. And all of a sudden, it just had a different strategic geopolitical issue that just dropped in our lap.
They were just trying to make you proud.
Right. He was trying to, he was bragging on it, like, hey, thanks for all that training. We're going to go take care of some stuff in a different mountain range. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And it goes back to right what you said. There was that thing, when you were there in 1998, the tension between Pakistan and India, who had both just declared themselves nuclear powers, like that tension between those two countries hadn't stopped. Okay. And while we were focused on Al-Qaeda, and Pakistan was willing to help us to a certain degree, they really cared about India. And so we got caught in one of those strange missions in between. So when I finally called that back up, they're like, hey, we're coming to get you. We're going to bring some other people out here to live out in the lunatic fringe and bring you back. So when we get back to Uzbekistan, you hear all these guys, and they're like, there I was, this glorious charge, and we were clearing all the Taliban out of here. And I was sitting there going, hey man, when's the next bird going home? Because I need to get out of here, man. I'm glad that you liked Anaconda and these other things, but I don't know what that was. It's time to go. And sometimes that's the way Green Beret missions go. So 2 very different Pakistan missions, but you know what's really cool on it, to put a bow on it? A couple guys that grew up in Texas, a couple just, growing up, teenagers, those type of things. You fast forward a couple years and you go into this great Army Choose Your Own Adventure, and you've got these really sort of strange stories out on the fringe of reality. That's awesome, right? And it's like General Mulholland told us when we left. He goes, look, guys, your lives are going to go 1,000 different ways when you retire or you leave or you get out of the military, but the experiences that you had here, always going to be with you. The good, the bad, everything that comes with it. And I've always held on to that, because that's really what makes life rich. Going out to Peshawar, going to the Khyber Pass, doing those things. Like, that's a really cool thing.
Well, I thought it was very interesting. So we weren't quite to the 9/11 stage at that point.
Yeah.
So those people ran traps for me. So it may sound irresponsible, but you know how it is. You kind of get the feel of your landscape.
Sure.
And I'm not sitting in a room all day.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it looks like to the average American, but when you walk down the street and everybody's got an AK-47 on them, it's just learned behavior. You're not too worried about it. And it's kind of like, hey, this is the golden child. Remember the movie?
Yeah, sure.
It's like, let this kid walk down the streets and get something to eat and don't mess with him.
Yeah.
Because he's living at the U.S. Consulate's house. Because there's like 20 guards there.
They weren't looking for that trouble.
They weren't looking for that trouble. And I had, believe it or not, freedom of movement all by myself. And I told you about the little motorcycle that we kind of pilfered.
Yeah, you acquired it.
Yeah, with some of the cat guys. And we were driving around with the dog in the little cart.
That's awesome.
And just having a good time driving around. Because, after a 10-day deal like that, when you work in that heat all day, in suits, or your 511 pants. You should sponsor us, by the way, because I wore them forever. But and they're right here locally.
Yeah.
But you do those kind of things, and you're like exhausted at night. You just want to go out. And the problem was everybody was smoking hash everywhere. So I was like, man, I'm gonna go back and get a piss test.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blow this thing to high heaven. And I didn't do nothing.
It's part of the mission.
I didn't drink nothing but some Budweisers, right?
Well,
but you know what I'm saying, because the culture there.
Well, let me ask you a question. Did you have a shower? You have good facilities where you were?
It was, I will say this, for what it was, I would say it was bougie.
I love bougie, man. It just struck me while you were saying that. We had a bucket for a shower. We were living rough.
I mean, mine was coming out of a pipe, but it was better than that.
We had a bucket and a hose, and we were happy to have it. I mean, it was, we were living out on the fringe of the world in the Pakistan travel area, and just happy to have it. But when I came back to Uzbekistan after 4 or 5 months, we took all of our uniforms and the clothes that we wore and just threw them away. It was rough, man. It was not coming back with me. It smelled like a hot dumpster in July in New Orleans, man. It was no fun. So
I'll tell you, and then in closing, I thought it was funny because it's like, so I came out of Germany for this mission.
Yeah.
So I was already 220 compliant.
Yeah.
And that saved my butt. Because a lot of these guys come from America, they don't realize nothing works over there.
Yeah.
So that was a plus. So, I mean, I was already prepared, but it was a hard mission, but it was an eye-opener for me to show you just how great it is to be an American.
Yeah.
Because those poor children out there, I mean,
sure.
I've never seen proficiency
with
a sewing needle between their feet.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, if you look at a soccer ball and you look at the punches out, there's probably, 100 in each little.
Oh, man, you can't see. They're so tight. Yeah.
And they just hit it, and I had to get one, though.
Yeah,
I had to get one only because we were in the World Cup.
Yeah.
What was it, 84, right?
Yeah.
So, and then we did the World Cup after that with the guys soccer. So I was really big into that. And I was like, and then 94.
94, yeah.
With Tony Miola, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I was like, man, I got to get one of those balls.
Yeah.
You know, so so I helped the economy, I think.
Well, a crazy journey for two Texas boys that ended up in Pakistan there. That's what the military gives you. Choose your own adventure. Cheers.
Right.
So, Dan, this weekend, college football, huge football weekend, big games. What do you think? What do you got?
A lot of disruptions going on in the championship series.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to see. I got to lead off with one thing, though.
Hit me.
Tennessee, I think it was in 06 is the last time they beat Alabama.
Sure.
Is that correct?
I believe so. That's correct.
Okay. So Alabama is so conditioned on winning. It's just another Saturday.
That's right.
But if you watched what happened in Tennessee this weekend, it was like they just won the Civil War.
The Tennessee fans, and look, I'm very empathetic to them. They've had some bad seasons. Some terrible seasons the last 10 years. They've gone through coaches after coach. You remember the whole Lane Kiffin debacle and everything else there?
100%.
To see them coming back and having themselves quite a season is great for football. However, I will say, I'm an Alabama fan. I go to a game every year thanks to my buddy Mike, who one of the owners of Innisfree Bars, if you're in Tuscaloosa. And I was yelling at that TV and calling it everything but a child of God. It was not the game I wanted to see.
Well, I think what's amazing about it, though, is they were such a drought. And then, Alabama is in the catbird seat every year.
Every year.
They just great recruiting. Whatever.
Absolutely.
But when you saw that, the mayhem.
Oh, yeah.
But good mayhem.
Yeah. The people were ecstatic. It was great.
Oh, I mean, it was like, I'm not going to say like you compare it to Al Michaels calling the Miracle on Ice.
Sure.
But to that stadium, it certainly was. And then they ripping the goalposts out of there. They were knowing that this is going to be another quarter century before we do it again.
Well, you saw the look in their face at the end of the fourth quarter because it was so close.
Oh, it was.
And it looked like in the last couple minutes that Alabama had won the game.
But how about that quarterback?
He did a phenomenal job. That's a great Alabama defense. So he did. He earned it. It was great. But now I'll say though, so that was the second biggest story of this weekend. The first biggest story, of course, was Tulane Green Wave, my alma mater, where I used to play college football there. Shout out Tulane.
I'll wear the hat.
I got to tell you, cracked the top 25, 6-1. We're 25th in the nation. In fact, right after we finished filming this, I start my drive to New Orleans for reunion weekend, where we're going to go 7-1, and we're going to rip Memphis is still beating hard out of their chest. We're going to show it to them before we eat it and throw it out. It's going to be awesome. The wave is rolling, 7-1, and I got to tell you, when I played at Tulane, we stunk. We were lucky to get a couple wins together. My sophomore year, we went 1-11, and we barely beat SMU, fresh off the death penalty, in a last-second field goal in the driving rain. We were not strong. I like to blame New Orleans because it's such a party every single night there.
Yeah.
But 4 years later, they went undefeated, and so clearly the issue was not the coaching that we talked about before. It wasn't the city. Perhaps it was the focus of players like me. But I couldn't be any happier for Willie Fritz and the team there. They're doing amazing this year. So let's roll wave, baby. Here we go. It's going to be awesome.
Well, when you have a look at it, SMU over the last couple of years, they have completely rebuilt that program. And they have been competitive. I'm not saying they're national level competitors, but it's a good football program.
My sister went to SMU, and I'll say that when you start that low, the death penalty was such a bad idea. Just another stupid decision by the NCAA. And let me tell you something. They make so many bad decisions. To say that this is one of the worst is really saying something.
Right.
Then they learn that you don't do the death penalty. That's really just, it's defeating the whole purpose of it. And now they reap what they sow at the NIL. Regardless, I do like watching the ponies. Every single game of the year, I will support them, except when they're playing the Tulane Green Whip. Then they got to go. Then you're going under the train. Yeah, I'm super excited, man. This is great. 7-1 after this weekend. You watch that. We're going farther down that chart.
So who do you think now is in the catbird seat for the national championship?
Georgia. Look, Georgia is still the champ until they're not the champ. It pains me to say that, and that gets a shout out to Dr. J, who I talked about earlier, that I talk about later, who's my psychologist. She loves Georgia. No time for the Georgia Bulldogs. None. Zero. Zip. But look, they're the champs. You got to tip your hat to the champs. They're the kings until they're not. Someone's got to knock them off.
USC took a bad one.
They did. And look, Utah's always been a good team, and I think, the Pac-12, I'm not sure how much longer the Pac-12 is going to be around. They've made some dumb decisions. USC and UCLA are voted with their feet. They're leaving. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens out there. But no doubt, the story of the weekend, boom, Tulane. Just get on the bandwagon now. Last year, they won 2 games the entire year. There's room. We got room on this Mardi Gras parade. Jump on. Be part of the crew. Now is the time. Trust me in this. Get in on the Tulane gig now. You can say you're one of the first people to do it. You'll surprise your neighbors. Your friends will have no idea what you're talking about. Get on the train now. Thank me later. Roll wave.
But more importantly, they also have a very good ROTC program, and that's half of the message that we're sending here.
Yeah, I'd definitely say so, for sure. I mean, they were nice enough to pay for my college experience out there. And that ROTC program does amazing things, turns out some great leaders, and a phenomenal thing. And that school is wonderful. So, big shout out. But for this weekend, let's roll with.
Hey, happy 25th.
Here we go. Let's do it.
You finally made it 25, baby.
That's
the
it.
wave.
Mm-hmm.
Signing off.
Cheers. Hey, so we're at the closing comments portion of our time here at the bar. It's been a wild ride today. We've talked college football, we've talked NFL, we've talked some crazy Pakistan stories. It's a pretty wild ride so far. But, I want to highlight something that's very near and dear to my heart, and I think it is for a lot of people. October is World Mental Health Awareness Month, which is important, and not just for the military, because we lean heavily into this, but also for everybody, because we've all been under a lot of stress and pressure over the last few years, especially with COVID, with kids missing school, the unknown. A lot of us had been put under a ton of pressure. Oh. And I'll tell you, in my last transition year, I've had a chance to really dive into the mental health portion of it. I got a great opportunity to work with the VA, the prep team, who I did over 100 hours with a psychologist there. Dr. J, I'll just call her that, absolutely saved my life. Phenomenal, just mental health provider. And, we'll dig into that in a later episode. But I'll tell you, I think everybody needs to take a look at themselves and figure out they need a tune-up. Because in my mind, if you twist your ankle, you break your leg, you're going to go see a doctor for it. Hey, this is the same type of thing. If you've taken some mental, injuries out there, just been banged up a little bit, or if you feel the stress just of life as a parent, as a kid, as a fill in the blank, hey, it is worth the weight in gold to be able to do it. I did it this last year. It absolutely changed, how I see the world. I just wish I would have done it 15, 20 years ago, and I wish the environment was different and they would have pushed us to go into it more. I don't know. What do you think about that, Dan?
Well, I'll just look at it from what you touched on, the children perspective.
Yeah.
My children had a horrible time here.
With COVID.
With COVID. Because they're used to being social.
Yeah.
And children are social.
Yeah.
Right? And when they took the kids back to school, they took them back out of school, made it look like the E.T. movie. People come in with these these nuke suits on, or chemical suits. Yeah, it was tough. And then the Zoom classes, all that stuff really hurt our national average in grades.
Yeah.
Kids' GPAs went down. They would log into Zoom, and then the teacher said you had to log into each Zoom. So it was just weird because it was in and out.
Kids feed off that social interaction too, and they're now totally isolated. And what was the UFC fighter that talked about it recently?
So, when it comes to mental health as a whole, so Patty the Batty Pimblett, right?
Yeah.
A lot of guys, okay, I get it. They're like, he's getting advanced too much as a fighter, but he's 2-0 or whatever.
It's great.
But he made a great point, and what he said is, I would rather call you and come see you before I have to find out about your death after my victory.
Yeah.
Because I care more about you than this victory.
Absolutely.
And if you could have just talked to me, I would have spent that time with you. And it resonated throughout the whole UFC and it probably would have resonated through the NFL back in the day with some of those people that took their lives.
But people didn't talk about it. People didn't want to have the conversations and they bury it.
Dave Duerson, from the 1985 Bears, you read a story up on that, right? About TBI. Or whatever from helmet injuries, right? Concussed. And it's sad in the sense that we as a country look at people that they're weak. Look, you and me will put a damn, electrical tape or any kind of tape, 100-mile-an-hour tape on our foot, and we're going to run 12 miles. We don't care. But there are people out there that need to speak to people, and you have to make yourself available. And I think that was his point when he was saying so we could look at it from the military side, or you could look at it just from friend side, right? That weren't in the military.
Well, and I'll tell you, closing thought on this. Green Beret Colonel, 28 years, all kinds of combat action out there. And I'll tell you, the best, smartest decision I ever made was sitting down with a wonderful professional to really help sharpen my steel and get me ready for my next chapter. I mean, I can't say enough great things about the support I got. And it doesn't have to be a psychologist. It could be a religious leader. It could be a friend. It could be fill in the blank.
100%.
But if you're struggling and you're feeling the stress, the doom scrolling, and all the craziness going on in the world, take a time out. Get that breath. Talk to somebody, preferably a professional, but whatever works for you to really get you back to a great mental place. And if you do that, we're going to be in a wonderful spot. So thank you.
That was great.
Cheers.
Cheers to you. Welcome to our salute table that we created around Last Call 76 to always represent somebody or a group of individuals at the end of our show. This month, or this show in particular, is October. It's Breast Cancer Awareness.
Absolutely.
And I think it's very important that we had a lot of our soldiers that had spouses or our soldiers directly were affected by this. So we just want to let you know this week, our salute is out to you, that hopefully you continue the fight. We're behind you, and we'll always be here to support you in any way we possibly can. Seth?
Absolutely. And it's those that suffer, their families, and also all those frontline workers, the researchers that are trying to find a cure, the doctors, the nurses that see you from when your initial diagnosis all the way through you being cured or through palliative care. We salute you and everything you're doing. Everybody's working towards this. I'm extremely confident we're going to get a solution to this soon. But in the midterm, we raise our glass to everybody that is fighting the great fight right now, whether it's personally or finding a cure for this horrible disease.
And if I may,
Of course.
I have a personal friend, Mike. I'm not going to say his last name, but he knows who it is. He was there for when my brother died in Iraq. And his wife is going through that now. And I'm going to keep last names out of it.
Absolutely.
But it's very important to me because this show is, I mean, there's some fun, there's some comedy, there's some sports. But at the end of the day, we generally care about our personnel and the people that we led in the past. And this is a toast to all of them, as well as you, Mike. And I know what you're going through right now personally. So thank you very much.